Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Missions. I'm Dustin Comm. Over the past couple of years on this podcast, we've told mission stories from around the globe, mostly through one-on-one interviews with guests. We've heard amazing stories of faith and trust in God, and how God has used Maranatha to bring hope and change all over the world. Going forward, we're trying something different that I'm excited about. We're bringing together our television program producers to help tell these stories. Our producers have traveled the world for Maranatha and have gained a unique perspective on missions, culture, travel, and media production, and have seen hundreds of lives changed firsthand. We'll still have guests on the podcast for certain episodes, but we may also tackle topics on our own that we've experienced ourselves. Think of it like getting to sit on one of our weekly TV production meetings, which I can tell you are a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to our show, and we hope you enjoy the new format, which will begin with a little teaser of what you'll hear in this episode, which starts now. All right, just finished up this episode. I think you're going to like it. We talk all about the ins and outs of what it's like to be a TV producer for our television program.
And that includes some of our most impactful interview moments.
Sometimes it's just about Dustin sharing snacks with some critters in his room.
And sometimes being a producer is trying to squeeze into a too small Messiah outfit in front of a bunch of people.
Can't wait to hear about it. All right, let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Missions. I'm Dustin Comm. I work as our communications manager, and I want to introduce you to the rest of our team here who are going to be regulars on our crew going forward. Julie, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, my name is Julie Lee, and I am the Vice President of Marketing at Maranatha Volunteers International.
Our leader.
I'm Christina Lloyd, and I'm the Director of Television here at Maranatha.
And my name's Sydney, and I am a communications specialist.
So we all have different roles within our marketing department, but the thing that is a common denominator is that we are all producers, field producers specifically, for our television show, Maranatha Mission Stories. If you've never seen our TV show, it airs on cable networks like Hope Channel and 3ABN, and on our online platform, watch.maranatha.org. And we tell mission stories from around the world, and it's often about needs and challenges connected to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And it requires people to get involved by volunteering, by donating, etc. So we travel around the world, we capture those stories, and because of this, we've had some unique opportunities to see Maranatha, the impact of Maranatha up close and personal. So today, we're going to talk about what it's like to be a producer for our television show. How would you guys describe that when people ask, what do you do?
Well, I think a lot of what our production is story gathering. You're kind of going out into the field and trying to find a unique way to portray the mission of Maranatha through the stories of people that are impacted by what Maranatha does. So I like to think of it more as story gathering and then kind of fleshing out all of the elements that are needed to tell a story in a visual medium.
What about you guys?
I'm thinking about it. I think of the role of the storyteller. I think we're kind of like a storyteller, but we're like the people who work for the storyteller and gather anything the storyteller needs to tell the story, if that makes sense.
Who is the storyteller then?
Who's our VO
Who's
guy?
the storyteller?
So I get that. Like, you're also kind of laying it out for the editor to be able to put this whole thing together, and you have to be thinking about a story arc that, goes the whole 30 minutes of an episode. It's definitely no small task for sure. So how do you guys prepare to go on one of these media trips? What are you doing before? I guess when you first get the assignment, you're going to this country for this specific reason. What do you start doing?
I think step one is like how we decide when we're going and where we're going, right? And so usually that's following either a volunteer project or places where we're about to build churches or places where we're about to drill water wells. So there's usually like a specific pull, so we kind of know the main draw for our story, just not details yet. I feel like that's step one.
Yeah,
Would you guys agree?
In our meetings, I mean, Christina leads this effort, and she kind of works with us, and she works with other vice presidents to determine which are the countries where we actually need a little bit more attention, that people need to be aware of for fundraising and volunteering. And then we also look at the whole big picture to see what areas have we not covered, or have we had enough volunteer stories this year. But in general, after we're assigned or we volunteer, like I can cover that project, I know for me, like the first call we usually make is to the field staff there, who are the boots on the ground, and they have an idea of what stories are available, or we ask them to start doing some research into what are some congregations or communities that may have stories that are really good for television, and then they do that legwork for us and report back to us, and then we make decisions on how we want to cover it.
And like you said, we're looking for stories that are good for television. Almost every project that we do has a really unique story of need. It's obviously justified to go there and do the work, but not all of them are the best stories for television or even, print. Or what makes a good story in general for Maranatha?
I would say, if we want to speak specifically about television's a visual medium. So you want it to be something where you can capture the visuals that help you tell the story. If it's a story that happened largely in the past and we weren't there to capture all of those elements, it's just going to be an interview with somebody and you're just sitting there looking at them telling the story, which might work really well for print with accompanying photos of the person.
Or you start to become a movie director
Yes.
and can sometimes have people act things out. How do you go about that if the story is largely in the past?
Yeah, we always say, I know Christina's big notes to us is always, how are you going to cover that? How are you going to cover that? And that means how are you going to cover that with visuals, with background roles. So.
Yeah, the visual is a really big part of it. So you want to tell stories that really immerse the viewer in the setting of the story, so they really can understand all of that. If it's just somebody that is just sitting and talking about their story, then people aren't seeing, where does this person live? How do they live? What does the setting for this church need? Why do they need water? All of those things. So we want to make sure that visually we can tell all of that.
We always, when we work once a year, we kind of have these training sessions with our field staff where our team talks to them about what are the elements of a good story. And we always talk about there's a protagonist, the good guy that we're rooting for. And then there's an antagonist, which is a person or an idea that creates a conflict. And for us, of course, the conflict is usually the lack of a place to worship, the lack of a school, or the lack of water. And then how does Maranatha and our faith kind of come in to help resolve that? And that creates kind of a complete package of our storytelling that fits not just basic good storytelling, but also fits our need to get people inspired and motivated to participate.
Yeah, if there's no conflict, if there's no tension or serious problem, it's not usually very interesting, right? So we kind of tend to look for the big problems and focus on those for these stories. What about actually planning the trip day by day? What are some of the considerations that you take into account as you're even planning the route, trying to be most efficient with your time as you travel through a country or a region of a country?
Well, I think just even timing wise, looking at what's the best time to visit a particular country. I don't really want to be in South India in the middle of July, So looking at what's the best time to visit a country, and we kind of go through our year and say, we tend to visit Zambia in May and October because those are the best times to capture things there. There's kind of a cycle like that. So I think just even timing wise for that particular place is a big part of it. And then a lot of it's just working with the field staff, and we are reliant on them and their resources. And it's like, okay, what would be the best way for us to accomplish as much as we can on the ground that's not too taxing on their resources?
Yeah, we look a lot at maps, right? And kind of schedule out daily. Well, if we start here, we can make a loop and make a stop here. Because we already spend so much time in the car, a lot of hours in the car. And we just have to make sure that it makes logical sense, the order of visitations that we do. And safety.
Yeah, and sometimes you're totally beholden to flight schedules inside the country. If we're trying to cover a lot of area and it requires domestic travel, then there are certain places that, you only have flights on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or you only have flights on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so you have to take all of that into consideration when you're coming up with the best route for a trip.
Absolutely.
When you're thinking of like film too, it's so interesting because I remember when I first started and I was first like going through schedules and stuff, I was like, okay, we're here during the day, good. But it even goes down to as detailed as where is the sun at in the sky? How is that going to change what our shots look like? And then like, say we're visiting a church, if we want shots of them inside, okay, how light is it going to be inside? How many windows are there? All those like little things. And a lot of those things we don't even know until we get there. And so it's exciting. But as much of those things as you can beforehand, that's been a learning curve for me of being like, okay, what are these things I don't know, but I need to learn to take into account when I'm planning these trips that are really important.
Yeah, we always have to document on our production sheets. We put when sunrise is and when sunrise or sundown is. And then another thing is lodging and food, because sometimes we're in the middle of nowhere. And so we have to rely on the field staff to tell us, well, that location doesn't have any place you can stay, which that leads to we've all had interesting accommodations. I think, Dustin, you've slept in a village in India and someone's kind of...
Yeah, it's like either you're going to drive a couple hours or more to stay at a hotel, or it's like, well, do we just do this and stay wherever we're at, camping or whatever it is? So, yeah.
I think one other consideration is when we're telling church stories, you want to pack out a church and show all of these members meeting, but you only have so many Sabbaths on a trip. So you sometimes have to get creative and say, hey, are you able, the local elder, are you able to get people to sit in the church and maybe reenact like a church service or a Bible study or something like that to tell that story, because you can't be at every single church on a Sabbath. So you got to get a little creative there.
Yeah. Same thing at schools. On my last trip to Zambia, we visited a primary school and we found out like that morning, I think, that it was a holiday. And so it was like their Independence Day. And so they weren't going to be in school. And I was like, shoot, because to tell a story, you need shots of kids in the classroom. And those kids were so nice. And they showed up on their holiday and they came and we were able to film them. So
I've never had
those little
that
details.
For a school. Like for churches, most of the churches, like majority, is not going to actually be on Sabbath. But I've never had kids show up for school shots, setups.
I was impressed. They showed up. Some on times, others not, but it was okay. We got some shots.
I think the leadership that we work with know that it's critical that we get these stories. And so they probably put a lot of, not pressure, but extra credit. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
The church congregations have always been so accommodating. No matter what day of the week is, they always show up. And even if it's not a full church, like you were saying, you can get creative and put people on one side of the aisle and kind of just shoot down the line so it looks like it's full, to represent what it would be like on a Sabbath. So, okay, so we've planned out a whole trip. What else do we need to do to actually get into the country? Sometimes there's immigration requirements, visas. Depending on the country, it might be more difficult than others to receive that. I know there have been, I'm not naming any names, but there have been some issues with getting visas or not receiving visas on time. It's just the way that things go. What about right before you leave? How many days before do you start packing?
Days.
Days? What are you talking about?
I think, I don't know. Sydney's relatively new to this whole experience, but I think for Julie and I, we've done this so much that I have a whole set of clothes that I only wear when I travel. So it's just a matter of taking the clothes out of that drawer and putting them in a suitcase, and then we're ready to go. And then honestly, I take a nap because, you can only plan and worry so much. It's all going to change when you get on the ground. So it's like, hey, I'm going to rest easy, that whatever needs to happen will happen on the ground. I've done all the preparation I can, and then we're just going to hit the ground running and be ready and receptive to whatever we see.
Yeah, I definitely have a IKEA plastic cube thing that I put all my mission clothes after. Christina told me that's what she does because she's the most experienced in production, and that's what I do. I call it my mission trip outfits, and it's the same thing. You got your hats, and then I have a list that Leo, one of our videographer and studio manager, he told me about. And so, because I've forgotten things, and so that list is so important to remember things like you said, like your visa if you need it, and chargers and things like that. So that the night before I pack, to answer your question.
You guys are crazy. My strategy is I pack so I at least have like a shopping few hours in between. So like I can do like a fake pack, and that's the only way I'll know like what I'm missing or what I need, and that way I can still go shopping for what I need afterwards.
Do you have a list though that you work off of?
right up here.
Oh, wow. She's young. She's got that memory going.
It's like even a list. I don't know why with packing, even a list for me, I'll see it. But if I'm going to forget it, I'm going to forget it still. I don't know why. Normally lists are really good for me, but it's like the going through the motions of like packing that really like cements, okay, do I have it or do I not?
I put it all out like on a big bed so I can see it and make sure I really did get it and then check it off. How about you, Dustin?
Yeah, I do the same. I also have a little bin that I pull out and, grab the things that I basically only use when I'm on one of these trips. And then I have a list as well that I, Leo, we're talking about this like it's a big task. And yet we're only bringing like one bag. Leo has got to bring all sorts of things. Leo, what is it like for you packing?
There is that side of things, the clothing, and I do keep meticulous lists because I will forget, and I have been in the car and done a second check of the list and realized I didn't bring something. But then there's the whole cameras and all the other gear. It's 3 bags. At least 3 bags are just gear and just 1 bag for clothes. So there's the clothing and then having a lot of other separate lists just for for all that other stuff.
It sounds so stressful.
Yeah.
All that equipment, because it's not something you can just, if I forget socks, I can go buy socks. But Leo,
there's
no
you
can't
point
just buy another.
He doesn't, he forgets, a lens or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Leo, I think you mentioned our studio manager and also our engineer for Inside Missions. So you'll be seeing more of Leo now as well too.
Has Leo, have you ever forgotten anything like significant that's equipment that you've had to, once a tripod didn't show up, I remember, but that wasn't your fault.
Show up. I don't remember, maybe you guys remember, but maybe I've blocked it out. I don't think so.
No.
We one of our contract videographers one time, their tripod didn't show up as well just because the airline sent it to like a different city on accident. And so we were like rigging up all sorts of stuff for like a day, and then it finally arrived. So like you were saying, you have this plan and then everything, not everything, but sometimes it feels like everything goes wrong, and then you got to figure out a way to overcome it. So I'm curious, as far as the stories and the people and the setting, we have preconceived notions of what it's going to be like, maybe because we've had in-depth conversations with our field staff, our country directors in a particular place. Maybe we've even talked to some of the subjects that we're going to interview. Usually not, right? Like a lot of times we haven't actually talked to those folks yet, but like how much does your preconceived idea of the story change on a average project? Or is it normally like what we prepared for is what we get when we arrive?
I feel like I can only think of the outliers, but I feel like on a normal project, I feel like it's usually pretty close to usually our field staff give us like bullet points of like, okay, here's the basics of the story. I think those are usually accurate, like pretty accurate. I think it's what's not in those bullet points that have got me is like, sometimes I'll fill in the blanks of like, okay, if this person has lived here since they were this age, okay, this is their home, this is where they live, this is where we're going to visit, I'm going to see this person in their home here. But that's not necessarily what the bullet points said, but I put those 2 and 2 together, and then we get there and they live like 15 miles away. Sorry, we're not going to get them in their home. So, switch gears. That's happened to me before.
It's also happened to me when we assumed that the subject they got for us, this person was right next to a water well, right? But it turns out they were kind of far away from the water well, and that was their only, but yeah, logistically it just changes things. Like they maybe get a ride, or they have to use a donkey or horse or whatever, and it just like changes the dynamic of what you were covering or what you were going to shoot compared to what you thought. So.
Yeah, that's happened to me before when we were covering water. Leo and Tom Lloyd, who also works at Maranatha, and he would travel with us as a videographer. But they would say, oh, where we get water? Or they would get water and they're like, our house is just over there, just over there. And the next thing you know, we're walking for 45 minutes over mountains. And so, yeah, it's different. But I think the only time that hasn't worked out for me in terms of when the field staff give us a story is if perhaps the person who relayed the story to them didn't have it quite accurate, or they chose to dramatize certain facts, or if the person turns out to not be a great interview. Because like Christina said, it's a visual medium, and sometimes if they're just not very articulate, no matter what language you're speaking, it can be problematic.
our country directors are dealing with hundreds of sites all across different regions or countries. They're kind of relying on the local, usually district pastors, to do some of the digging for them. So if information is relayed, and sometimes those pastors maybe only were able to talk to the head elder who recommended somebody that might be good. And so I've found that the people that we had arranged for us, sometimes when we get into an interview with them and we realize, oh, they have no idea what, they're not related to this particular problem as much as we thought, or, you get one question in and you're kind of like, maybe there's no point in this interview. Let's find, has that ever happened to you guys?
Oh yeah,
Totally.
I feel like those situations have expanded me so much, because on these trips, especially like since I've been new and I don't know what I'm doing as much, I want to plan as much as possible. I want every little detail to be like, to try to make it go as smooth as possible. And then to get there and have something like, this person you've been planning on interviewing for months, oh, they're gone. Or, oh, maybe the interview's not what you thought. Now you have to pivot. Those are very intense moments, and something I've had to get used to, of like, okay, we're here in the middle of nowhere. What now? Like, decisions need to be made. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think it's forced me to be a lot more flexible in my thinking about things. And yeah, I think I was very much like that, where it's like, I want to plan everything. And even the way that you approach the interviews, I remember in the beginning being in a village in India, and it was like, oh, I need to interview these people. And they're like, sit down, let's have some tea. And I'm like, we're losing sunlight. I can't sit and have tea with you. But that's an important part of the process, is building that rapport with people, taking time to build their trust and for them to have confidence in you, because we're telling their story.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is as important as the actual interview itself. Not just to like, oh, I'm going to pop into your house and I'm going to start asking you questions and we're going to start setting up gear, but actually taking time to sit and learn a little bit about them. And you get a way better interview when you take the time to do that.
So I wanted to ask you guys, what are you guys thinking when you're doing an interview? Because I feel like, maybe people think we're just asking a question, sitting and listening, but actually you're listening. And for me, the whole time while they're talking, you're listening to what they're saying, but there's this whole video playing in my head of, okay, I could use that, or okay, how would I illustrate that on? And okay, wait, this isn't going in. What do I have to do to get them to go back to that? I mean, your mind is going on 4 different things while you're trying to be a good active listener. Is that you guys too?
And they might say something really great over the course of a whole paragraph, but we really need them to say it in a more concise manner. We might be able to edit it, but maybe not. And so sometimes it's like listening for, was there a good soundbite that was delivered amongst all of that? Yeah, it was all good, but it took like 60 seconds for them to get out what could have been said. So sometimes asking them to or asking it in a different way, or asking them to rephrase it. Active listening is important for that, for sure.
I think I'm always thinking about the arc of the interview, like where that direction where I want the interview to go. And then I'm making a mental list of, okay, they're telling me all of these different aspects of the story, and what after we're done with the interview, how am I going to illustrate that? So I'm keeping kind of a mental list of the pieces of what we call B-roll, but the things that illustrate the story. I'm starting that list in my head while I'm doing the interview.
And I think that's why, like, sometimes people just think, oh, I'll just, are you busy? I'll just do that interview for you. And it's like, we're not just sitting asking a list of questions. We're doing a lot of calculations and analysis in our heads while we're doing it.
Now, where that gets a little complicated is when we're using interpreters, right? So
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're listening. Sometimes I think a lot of us know a little bit of Spanish, but if it's in another language, we are kind of at the mercy of the interpreter to translate exactly what was said, and they might summarize and didn't include a crucial detail that we needed to get that they didn't actually say, and so then we don't have that. So that can be complicated as well.
And I've learned that sometimes you're in an interview and you're like, the person's energy is so great, and you're like, oh, this interview is awesome, and then we come back and we translate it. And I'm like, they said nothing.
Yeah, like
but they said nothing so emphatically.
Sometimes,
and so that interpreter is so crucial. And when you have a good one that is not just taking your questions, but then taking them, informing them in a way that will get the answer that you want out of that person, to get the information that you need out of that person, is really, really, really critical.
And then have you guys ever had those situations where you've had 2 interpreters that you have to go through?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody to this language and
Once
then to
or
this
twice.
language.
That's
and
when
then
it
this
gets
language.
real scary.
That's when you're just like, I hope this game of telephone is going to work out.
Yeah, sometimes in an interview, kind of like what you said, they'll have so much energy and I'll be so excited about it. And I'll have asked my question, and then the interpreter will explain to me what they said, and I'll realize like, oh, like the interpreter misunderstood my question. So all of that is just like not quite what I wanted. And so then it's like, you know, the interviews where we need interpretation is like double the time plus a little extra, you know, because all of the explanations that happen in between. So,
and then you also have to be careful of interpreters who are wanting to please and maybe are trying to get specific things out of the subject that we weren't really asking, or maybe they're summarizing it in a way that they think will make us. I found this a lot too in certain interview subjects, that they are trying to answer in the way that they think or they expect that people would want them to answer. And that might include not talking as explicitly about the challenges or the needs or the actual conditions of where they're at. And that's tough because, you know, we want to honor the culture of where we're working, and we want people to come off in the best possible light, but we also want to show sometimes it's pretty rough conditions, right? So how do you guys balance that act?
It's hard, and I always try to put myself in the shoes of the people. Like if somebody showed up at my church and like wanted to do all these interviews, or even showed up at my house and said, "Oh, show me all of, you know, what you have going on in your life," it would be invasive and intrusive. So I think just again, taking that time to kind of build that connection ahead of time and to build that trust and to make sure that they understand why we're wanting to tell their story, and that what their story represents to a larger community of people and the impact that they're telling their story could have on their community. I think making sure that they understand the underlying reason, I think, is important. But we're also not interviewing, you know, the people that we're interviewing are ordinary people. You know, they're not rocket scientists. They're not, you know, they're just people that are living their lives, and they're trying to, in a lot of situations, eke out a living. And so making sure that what we do honors them in a way that is respectful, and I think building their trust is an important part of that.
And we also know that, you know, there's a decent sized audience that is going to have this picture, this image of this one particular part of the world by watching our episodes. So we definitely want to make sure that we're not misrepresenting that into some sort of stereotype that is not reality. On the ground.
We talk about that as a team a lot, just trying to make sure we're capturing a well-rounded picture of whatever place we're going to. And sometimes I admit it's harder than we think, because our stories do take place in areas that need us, and those areas are going to be more remote. They are going to be more impoverished. But a lot of the places that we go to have city centers that are quite impressive and are places that you would feel comfortable living. And so, but it is a little bit harder to incorporate that into the story. But I do think it's important for us not to perpetuate certain stereotypes of the places we work. And we have a responsibility to show all of the great things that we can learn from each of the places that we go to as Americans and others. So,
yeah, I think people are so much more than the aspects of their life that are the hardest. And even though it's part of the reason we're there is to communicate that, because oftentimes that's why Maranatha is involved, I also think it's so much fun to get to know the other parts of the person too a little bit, and kind of just give people a glimpse of, as accurately as we can, what their life is like and who they are. I think is really special. So yeah, just trying to find that balance of just, you know.
And find maybe commonalities.
Yes.
You know, these are ways that we are all similar. We all have families. We all care about our families. We all want to provide the best for our families. And so I think sharing that common ground helps everybody relate to each other, no matter what the differences are.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a little break from this discussion. We'll come back and we'll talk more about building that rapport with interview subjects and the people on the ground that we're going to get the stories through. But first, rapid fire questions. I'm going to throw you guys questions. You're going to answer as truthfully and as quickly as you can. Are you ready?
No.
Okay. What is your favorite thing in your luggage bag?
I'm going to say
on a typical trip.
I'm going to say my travel pillow, because I love to take a nap on an airplane.
That you do. You're very good at it.
Let's be real. Christina doesn't even need a travel pillow to take a nap.
That's true.
I'm going to say my noise canceling headphones.
Nice.
It's nice to zone out. every now and then erase the world around you for a little bit.
Julie,
I don't know.
anything?
I don't know.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. Aisle seat or window seat on an international flight?
Window seat.
Window
You can
all
take
the
it.
way.
Aisle.
So if I'm taking
where
a
do you need
short,
to go?
if I'm taking a
I'm with
short
you,
flight,
Sydney.
I like being able to see out. I like the window. But if it's an international like overnight flight, I will choose the aisle.
That's where I'm at. I don't want to be
But
trapped.
where are you going to sleep?
Yeah, I need to sleep.
The
And
little
only-
head things bend forward.
Oh my goodness,
Just lean
that
your
is
little head over.
that is
I
wild.
have contraptions
Those are
that I use.
useless. Contraptions that you rig
sleep.
up.
Yeah,
Contraptions.
yeah. You don't know about my upright?
I thought that was just for the reel we made. Do
Oh,
you actually use that?
You actually have one of those that you like hug and lean onto?
For people that are just listening, I have this inflatable. You want to call it a pillow? It's more of a tower.
Like a wedge.
It's
a
huge.
tower that has like a hole at the very top, and you stick your head in it, and you put your arms through it. So it's simulating kind of laying on your side or on your stomach. if
Isn't
you
that like
actually-
2 feet tall? That thing?
I mean, that might be an
Do you have
exaggeration,
to blow
but
it
it's,
up yourself?
you do.
Is that a lot of like oxygen or? Or you
How
take like
long-
a mini air
How long
pump?
does it take to blow up?
Yeah.
Like, are the wheels
It's
of the
not-
plane off the ground before you can get it blown
Yeah, and
up?
I mean, are we talking this level of work? Is it worthwhile? Are you getting a solid 8 hours? I mean,
It's not worth it. I have not slept.
Passes out on it while trying to blow it up, and then he's out the whole flight.
window seat. I just gotta
No,
say.
I can't sleep reclined straight back. So this pillow, being able to be forward, it does help me quite a bit. So, but
Whatever
That's great.
floats your boat.
Yeah, whatever. works.
honestly, I just can't sleep a whole international flight anyways. So
I'm sorry.
I've tried different. Yeah.
Christina and I can sleep anywhere,
Anywhere.
and Leo has a collection of photos to prove he's sleeping, falling, taking naps everywhere. So,
All right. What is your favorite airline snack?
like to take with you on the plane, or
I was thinking that they pass
that they
out.
serve.
oh,
I've been into spicy tomato juice lately.
oh.
Makes me feel something.
I think Delta has like these lemon granola bars that they used to serve. They don't anymore. There were these little squares, and they were really, really good.
Those sound good.
I like the sun chips
Mm.
or a Biscoff cookie. I mean, you can't go wrong with
The
a
little
Biscoff
mini
cookie.
sun chips.
Yes.
I always wish they were full size, but
I
they're
know.
good.
Clearly, by the snacks,
So
if
good.
you are a Delta flyer yourself,
Yes.
you can tell
Delta,
we're talking about
please
Delta.
sponsor us.
How about you,
Yeah.
Dustin?
Delta passes out pistachios. I like those.
They do, as like one of the options.
Yes, sometimes.
Sometimes.
In
In
Comfort
certain
Plus.
situations.
Depending on where you're
Yes.
sitting.
Yes.
What is the sketchiest place you've ever had to sleep on one
Oh.
of these trips?
Sketchy it.
And not in an airplane row next to someone that's
Or not
the smells
camping.
yeah, camping.
I mean, I did one whole trip was just camping, so I didn't know if I was going to have lions attacking me, but I felt pretty safe though.
I would say this hotel that we stayed in Ecuador, I would have rather camp. It was pretty bad, and we were with a volunteer group. It was a Christmas family project, and we were at the very top of the hotel, and when all the volunteers would come back, no water would reach our hotel room. So we did not have water a lot of the time. It was the worst room in the entire hotel, and 2 years later, we went back and stayed in the exact same room again. So it was pretty awful. You just feel really gross. It was really, really, really humid, as parts of Ecuador are, and no running water. It's pretty awful.
I haven't been in any. I haven't had like terrible places, but worst would probably be my dungeon, as we call it.
Doesn't sound good. but-
Tiny little subterranean stone-walled room. It was just really cold, but
This was in India.
it was in India. Yeah. And then we had a space heater down there, but I think I like broke it halfway through one night, and then it was really cold.
Man, you get all the cold assignments because wasn't when
Yeah.
we were first in
Peru.
and you were freezing
Ultimate workout,
in your
yes.
hotel room?
The only time it was like 10 days to 2 week trip that I was not freezing was after like 2 hours after my body heat had like warmed my cocoon on my bed. And that was the only time like I was not freezing that trip. So yeah, I've had a lot of the cold ones, but that's it. Manageable.
Dustin?
What about you?
Yeah.
So mine would probably be the contrast of that. We were up in northern Kenya, Illoret, drilling water wells, very hot, and we're just in this camp, and the windows don't have anything. They're just there's no windows basically, and so and you want air to, if there is any air, you want it to flow through. But there was critters in my room that were like in my stuff,
What?
And
What kind?
I would get woken up. I would hear something like
that would be the
significant.
End of me.
Like
I would have
furry
to quit.
critter, like
I
mammal.
don't know. I would
You
get
didn't
ready.
investigate it?
I got my flashlight. I would whip it over, but I had a mosquito net, right? That is like around you. So when you shine the light, it just shows the mosquito net right around you. You can't see. So then I would try to catch it by like unzipping, flashing, but it was out of there. It was gone. So to this day, I still don't know what it was, but I had like some snacks, some provisions that were
Missing.
taken. Yes.
Really? That
Yes.
big of ooh.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just
something.
an insect.
I don't know what it was, but
That'd be
yeah.
scary.
Yeah. Yeah. The other one, you'd mentioned being in some villagers' homes in India. That one, it's like, it's a home. So, and everyone was so nice and it was actually comfortable. But there were like gaps in the floors and you just don't
was
know.
it like a dirt floor thing with and what was the walls made out of? Like
it was wood. Everything was wood, bamboo, and really great construction. Like they do amazing stuff with like interweaving bamboo slats together. It's really cool. But yeah, like openings like in the floor, so you don't know what might be coming in. But overall, I would say knowing something there was for sure in my room that trumps just the fear of not knowing. So, okay, last rapid fire questions, which is not.
These are not rapid.
been
Yeah,
rapid at
you're
all.
explaining too much.
Best gift you've ever been given by a local church or school, or just the most interesting.
We got a couple chickens
Okay.
that were fun.
Oh yeah, I think
Poultry.
we've gotten goats before.
Some livestock, yeah.
I would think the best gift would be we were visiting the Kajiado Adventist School and Rescue Center right at the beginning of Maranatha's work there, and they gave us a full Maasai outfit and like inducted us into the Maasai tribe, and that was pretty special.
That was actually mine too.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember that they like took the time to like, because we had been with them all day, every day for a week, and they took the time to actually like pick out Maasai names that represented us as
Oh,
well,
wow.
which was really, that to me was like the coolest gift.
I had a Maasai outfit given to me too at Kajiado, but that was one of my worst experiences because there are several of us, and then they like I don't know if they did this to you, but they want to like dress you in front of the crowd.
Yes.
And yeah, they had the wrong one for me. They had a size that was too small, and as a woman, I don't know if there's anything more embarrassing than these people in front of hundreds of people trying to fit you into this tiny little outfit that you feel massive and you can't get your arms through, and then they had to like pull out, and they're like, oh, it's the wrong size. I'm like, yes, I'm bigger. Thank you, thank you for the humiliation.
That's so funny.
All right, that concludes our rapid fire question round. Very nice, good job. So let's talk a little bit about the stories and the people that we are interacting with on these media trips that we go on. First of all, and Christina, you brought this up. I mean, why even tell these stories through a character? Why not just like show the need? It might speak for itself.
I think showing the human side of the story is really important because I think, again, finding that commonality when you see somebody that's maybe the same age as you are, but is living a vastly different life than your life, I think that you could relate a little bit better. And I just feel like that's, it makes it more personal than just saying, here's a group of people, they need a new church, help them build a new church. But if I know that this person has a family, they have 3 kids, they own a small store, they are a church elder, and they are giving Bible studies to their neighbor. If I know all of those details, I can relate a lot more to what their life is like, and it creates a stronger bond, which then turns into being more empathetic about what their circumstances are. And in the end, I think people can relate, and then they're more inclined to get involved with what we're wanting to do to help those people.
Yeah, I think we are, humanity is about storytelling through all of the years. That's how we connect. That's how we pass on information. It's storytelling. And to go more technical, I think if you do all the research on getting involved or giving, people respond to a story about a person much more than they might about just facts and statistics.
Yeah. So tell me this. You fly to a country, you drive to this site, you pull up, you put it in park, or not you, but Usually it's
Maybe.
someone else. Might be us. Might be us. To me, that's actually one of the most exhilarating parts of the job because nothing exists. This whole story doesn't exist yet as far as like what the end product will be, but it's now up to us to tell this story. What are some of the first things you're doing when you step out of that car and you're going onto a school campus or you're meeting with a church congregation? Who are you meeting? Who are you trying to, identify as people to potentially tell these stories through?
I just try to talk to as many people as I can. If we're going to a church congregation, I'll try to sit down with the group and just, hey, tell me about your church. How did you get started? How did you get involved with this? And just have them start telling me stories about their lives. And then through that process, see, who's really speaking up or who has a compelling story, and then kind of dive in deeper there. But I think just starting to talk to people and just see what's going on and see what the landscape looks like and all of that. That's kind of my first step.
Sometimes it's hard because you want to witness life in this place as authentically as possible, but sometimes we jeopardize that authenticity just because there's usually like a crowd to see what's up. We have a lot of gear with us that sometimes like looks weird and is like, people are curious. And so life isn't as normal in that moment as it typically would be. And so I think trying to create as much normalcy as possible and just chat, kind of like keep it as chill as possible. Yeah, casual. And just as you try to get to know them, I think that's important.
It's a fine balance because it's really helpful from a production standpoint to be able to do interviews with people first, because then you know what they've said and what you need to get B-roll of. But you also don't want to just jump into it when you really haven't gotten to know that person yet. You don't know all the aspects of their story and some of the details that might come out if you are able. So depending on the schedule and how much time we have, sometimes we don't have any time. We have to hit this one site in this one day, and so you kind of have to just do it. But other times it is really helpful to be able to just spend time with them, get B-roll, and then as you're able to, as the interview subjects kind of come to you in a way, like as you're interacting with people, then okay, this will be good.
How long would you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and sometimes I think I have traveled a lot with Leo. It's kind of like as you see the story starting to unfold, it's like, okay, that lady over there, start getting B-roll of her. Focusing on her as the whole scene is unfolding. But I'm like kind of motioning, like, okay, let's narrow down on her. I think that's where the story's going.
How long would you guys say is kind of the optimal number of hours you have to spend per site? I mean, no, it depends on factors, but I feel like anywhere, like I feel like 3 to 4, depending on the story. Sometimes things take forever to set up.
You're saying before everyone is kind of comfortable with you?
No.
Just to
get an idea of what we're
because like we try to
with.
fit in maybe 2 sites a day.
I think for church sites, that's probably adequate. But if a character pops up and you're like, man, I need to get more B-roll of that person, having more time than that is always better. More time is always better.
Yes.
I think that's the hardest is when you see a potential story, but time isn't there.
Yes.
And it kind of blocks you. That's the hardest. Is like, okay, you try to get what you can, but it's so hard if you could have tried to make something else work or saw another story you could have pursued. But then having to stick to schedule and stuff, that's pretty hard.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people also don't understand. It is just how long it takes. And so people don't travel with us unless it's just the production team, because we'll spend hours at one place.
By the way, just as a side note, our days are normally, sunrise to sundown.
Yeah.
And for Leo, past, because he's whatever he does with the
footage.
Yeah, Leo, so you shoot all day, and what do you do when you get back to wherever you're staying?
The day is sadly not over. No rest. When we get home or when we get back to the hotel, we have to put footage onto the computer, check everything, and see what you did to make sure you need to make any adjustments for the next day, and make sure that you got all the files over, because you might have to eventually delete the files off the cards so you can shoot again. So, yeah.
And Leo, when you get out of that car, when you first pull up to a site, depending, we're talking about kind of finding the right people to talk to and getting to know people, but you're not just sitting there waiting for this process to happen. What are you doing?
Kind of getting a lay of the land, first of all, seeing if there's a good place to fly the drone, kind of stuff that we would need to watch out for when flying, and also getting some of the natural life that's happening around. Before we hone in on a story, it's good to get some of the more general things out of the way too.
I think it's fun to travel with Leo because he's always looking out the car window, and sometimes he just yells, stop the car, I want to get this shot. But I appreciate that because he's thinking constantly too, just like us as producers are about the story. He's thinking about visual elements and shots and things that would really enhance our storytelling.
And it's not uncommon. Leo, he's done this for so long, he knows mostly we don't have to say anything, but there's sometimes that maybe two things are happening at once. So it's not uncommon for us to say, hey, Leo, grab this real quick. This is happening, and he'll go grab it. So it's nice to have a couple eyes that are looking for those kinds of things. You talked about interviewing somebody at a site and then getting B-roll. What are some of the typical things that we would do for B-roll for just say a normal church member at a church that we're going to build for?
We usually ask them what they do. Like, what would you normally be doing if we weren't here right now? And see what they do. I've gotten cooking a lot. Yeah,
and depending on where they live, it might be, if they have a job, you might go to their job and get them working. We tend to like to get family life. So maybe it's the family sitting around a table enjoying a meal, or if they have family worship, or if they have their own personal worship, we'll get shots of them maybe reading their Bible, praying, things like that. And then generally churches have some sort of means of outreach to their community. So we like to capture that, whether it's going door to door and talking to their neighbors, or having Bible studies with people, or kids ministries. Like one lady feeds the kids in her neighborhood, so we followed her around while she did that. So it kind of just depends on what the story dictates.
And if it's volunteers, obviously you want volunteers working, volunteers interacting, and all people, volunteers and local folks, we like to show them interacting so that we can illustrate the idea of community.
And volunteer projects are a whole nother thing for us, right? People may not think about this, but how is shooting a volunteer project different than one of these other more needs-based projects trips that we would take?
I think one of the things that's the same is you're looking for stories. Each of these volunteers comes with a story of their own. So it's kind of the same thing. I'm trying to sit at meals with different volunteers and talk to them and learn about what their stories are, what brought them on the mission trip, and what are their expectations, or what are they hoping to gain from the experience. So a lot of it's the same. It's just making connections with people. I think that's a lot of what our job is making connections with people and then communicating those connections with our viewers.
What are some of the most meaningful connections that you guys have made specifically with local people that we have interviewed or that we've interacted with when we're on these media projects? Anything come to mind?
Yeah. I mean, Leo was with me on this. There was one of my very, very, very first Maranatha trips that I went on when I was in my 20s for work. I went and I met this couple in the Dominican Republic who were donating a part of their land to build a church, and it was a huge dream. And it was just, we spent all day there, and it was my first time. We were kind of doing these videos. We didn't have a television show, but we had these VHS videos that we would create about a country. And somebody who was with us was like, do a stand-up, Julie. And I'd never done a stand-up before, so I was doing all that.
And that's where you stand and talk to the camera.
Yes, and kind of introduce like a newscaster or something. But then I really bonded with this couple, and when we were leaving, we were telling each other like, oh, we love you, And then I don't know how many years it was later, I asked when we were on our way home from a trip in the Dominican Republic if we were going to pass by Boca Chica, because that's where it was. And the driver's like, yeah. And so we went, and I go, do you know where the Boca Chica Adventist Church is? And I hadn't been back, and you rarely run into people you've interviewed again. But we just happened, like that person was very encouraging. They're like, just let's go and see if they're home. And it turned out that lady was, when I knocked on the gate, I just didn't know if she would even recognize me because it'd been a really long time, over a decade. And when she came out and saw me, she just started gesturing and yelling, and I just started crying, and we hugged, and she took me through her house and told me what had been on, and her husband had died. And it was just really emotional for me because, again, connecting with somebody you connected with so long ago, and it really reminded me of what heaven's going to be like in terms of just reuniting with all of these people that have brushed past your life. And
yeah, I think so many times we are on the front end of the project and we don't always get to see the impact of what that project is. And I think that those are the moments that are most meaningful. And I think the example for me is the Caggiato trip that Dustin and Leo, we were on together. And we got to meet some pretty special girls, and 3 of which that we interviewed. And those interviews were just rough. They were so emotional. And what the girls had been through was just so traumatic. And then years later, to be able to go to the dedication of the school, and 2 of the girls who had graduated, had kids, came back, and getting to see them again was pretty special. So I think those are the times when you can see the impact of the work that you do. That's really special.
I think it's such a hard question for me to answer as far as like what subject your interview was most impactful, because I think sitting down and interviewing people is my favorite part of these trips, because there's so much chaos in the planning and there's so many details, and for however long that interview lasts, I get to just focus on getting to know this person. And it's not even just like normal small talk of getting to know a person. You're kind of getting into the heart of their most, dire needs at that time. And you get into really vulnerable topics. And I feel like you just bond with this person quickly in a very impactful way. On our Leo and I's most recent trip to Zambia, I think my most impactful interview on that trip was a student at Sala, a school that we're currently adding more classrooms to for the viewers, for listeners. And it's hard to pinpoint, I guess, what specifically about the interview impacted me, but this student was the top student in her class. She worked so hard, and I could just get such a vivid sense of her passion and her work ethic and her desire to succeed at her goals, which was to go to school after Sala and to be able to make more money. And all of it, she clarified very strongly that all of it was just so that she could make her family's life better. And it was there was just such a strong passion from her, but it was for others, less about herself and what she could do for her family instead. And it just inspired me. It was so genuine. I think those are the interviews that impact me the most, are the ones where people are so truly excited about what they're talking about and they're just so genuine. Those conversations are just so special to me.
And I feel like a lot of the people that we interview are the local leaders of their church or their school. They're the real movers and shakers of their communities, and they work so hard through just bringing people together, to building a congregation, to keeping a school going. And it is really inspiring.
They're inspirational people.
They're just giving it everything because they truly believe in it. And I don't think at least I don't feel like I come across that level of selfless passion in my daily life. It's really when you see it overseas. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but.
Absolutely. Yeah. The one that came to mind for me was earlier this year. I was in Paraguay, and we were talking earlier about interviews and things that you find out during the interview. Sometimes it doesn't help our cause. In this case, we found out that this lady didn't actually know that Maranatha was indeed going to build her church, and she'd been waiting for this church in her town for 25 years, something like that. It was definitely more than 20 years. I can't remember the exact number, but so we decided we're going to tell her during the interview. So just seeing the look on her face when we told her the news, she was speechless. She raised her hands in the air. She was looking over to her other church members. She just couldn't believe it. And to me, as you just said, that passion and the joy, I mean, you can't beat that. That is something that is always going to impact me. And
we need to play a little clip of that if we can. We need to try to add that in, because that moment was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And dedications are really special too. And there's just so much to celebrate. But I think, unless anybody else has any other things to add, we should wrap this up. Thank you everyone for listening and kind of getting a inside look at what our job is like when we go on one of these media production trips. And thank you guys for sharing your experiences. And Looking forward to this new format and hope everybody enjoyed it. If you're interested in getting involved and learning more about the mission of Maranatha, be sure to visit our website at maranatha.org and check out volunteer opportunities, watch our TV program, Maranatha Mission Stories, or make a donation. So for today, this has been your peek inside missions. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. All right, so what are the bullet points that are going to be our T's?
The critter that was eating your snacks.